All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people just like you and just like me. All right, don't forget about Modern Retro Radio, modernretrofm.com, great radio station playing new material from classic artists. Say if like John Fogerty puts out a new song, right? And everybody else ignores it. Well, that won't happen over at Modern Retro Radio. They will play the track, they will celebrate the track, they'll tell you the name of the song, and they get into the specifics of the music that they play, which is so refreshing. It's better than the community bulletin board announcements that you'll get over on corporate radio, which the music is basically like window dressing for everything else they have going on. And plus, it's all programmed in a central location and piped in, whether you're in Toledo or Tucson, it's all going to be the same stuff. So check out modernretrofm.com, playing the music that nobody else plays currently. Now, speaking of John Fogerty, right? He did this interview with Forbes magazine. And the interviewer, of course, popped the question, which happens pretty much every time poor John has to do an interview. Will CCR get back together again? And Fogerty said, well, I've learned in life that you really don't know what's down the road, except an old man. Sorry. As far as I could see, that probably would never happen. Now, that's an interesting, as far as I can see, that probably would never happen. I mean, that's far more diplomatic of an answer than the typical Fogerty, it'll be a cold day in hell type answer. But you just never quite know what's happening tomorrow or next year. None of us knows. Is he talking with these guys again? And I'm talking about Doug and Stu, right? His brother passed away, I don't know, 1990-ish, I want to say. Tom Fogerty. Kind of hard to do a real CCR reunion without the great Tom Fogerty, who was very talented on his own, put out some great material back in the 70s, even worked with his brother, I think, a little bit. And those guys, none of them got along. This was the most acrimonious band in the history of music. And Stu Cook and Doug Clifford went on to be in Creedence Clearwater Revisited. Fogerty was not too happy about that. And because number one, it keeps the acronym of CCR, and they're out there. They've got a different singer, obviously, and they did that for probably 20 or 30 years. They went out there as CCR Revisited. So anyway, the answer here by Fogerty is quite entertaining. It's interesting. It's not just your blunt never. It's none of us knows. He goes on to say, it took years and years for me to be released from the bondage my record company had me in. He says, I'm a lot older now because I'm a happier man. I try to dismiss all of that, meaning the acrimony with his former band. If you had a young kid, maybe your son, and you wanted me to talk to him, I would sit down and give him a good hour's lecture about what I went through. He then shared his feelings about the incident and continued, I feel better, but I haven't forgotten what happened, you know? It was just wrong. Hopefully that doesn't happen to too many people. There's a tendency to take advantage of youngsters with stars in their eyes. He says, get a good lawyer and have him read the contract well and make sure he's on your side. A long time ago, Doug Clifford revealed that he and Fogerty only communicate through lawyers and that the band would never reunite. He stated that it would have been pretty good maybe 20 years ago, but nobody cares about it now. I disagree with Doug Clifford. I definitely disagree with Doug Clifford. If the internet announced a CCR reunion, the place would go crazy. All right. It would go crazy, even if it was a one-off concert. Say they wanted to do a benefit for Maui, right? Which would be a great idea. Get the boys out to Hawaii, have them do a concert. record the whole thing. I'm thinking it would be a huge success. Now, I haven't seen Stu or Doug for quite some time, so I don't know what condition they're in. But I'm thinking, a one-off concert, you might need a rhythm guitarist. I'm not sure. The point being is that this would be something that people would still be interested in. Look at all the possibilities. CCR, if they had continued through the 70s and into the 80s, and people were still willing to listen to that type of music because John Fogerty's Centerfield album just did phenomenal. And then he had a follow-up that did fairly well. But, as time went on, maybe he got a little bit just disenchanted with putting the music out there. And he was still fighting because they're saying, look, that song you recorded, it sounds like a CCR song, The Old Man Down the Road. They're saying it sounds like a CCR song. And he's like, well, I am CCR. What are you talking about? I mean, I wrote those songs. So why are you accusing me of making music like the way I used to make music? It was the most preposterous thing. I mean, I don't know if he could look past that, but his answer, I think, leaves the door open a little bit. He's like, you never know what's going to happen. It's hard for me to imagine Stu Cook, Doug Clifford, and John Fogerty on stage together again. It's hard for me to imagine that. But like I say, with a lot of bands, when they get to be this age, I'm assuming everybody is well into their 70s. Hopefully everybody's in good health. Why not just bury the hatchet for the fans? I mean, they made some of the greatest music in history. In fact, if you were arguing with me and said, you know what, I know you like the Beach Boys and you like the Eagles and a couple of other great American bands out there that have done great things like Chicago, I would say CCR. You could argue that CCR was the greatest American band. Critically acclaimed. Nobody else sounded like CCR. John Fogerty, such a legend. And yes, he pulled all those other guys along with him, even more so after Tom leaves. But just an amazing band that deserves every bit of fame that they got. And obviously their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame wasn't a very peaceful induction. Everybody is on stage together, but kind of seething. If you go back and look at that, I think everybody behaved well considering the circumstances. But yeah, people would be definitely still interested in a CCR reunion, Doug Clifford. And you would think that somebody, a promoter, would say, look, guys, you don't have to like each other. We'll just do a one-off show. We'll do a benefit concert for the Maui fire victims. We'll find a way to make it have meaning, and the way John Fogerty still sounds after all those lockdown videos that he did. And I hated lockdown videos because I'm like, you know what? These should be live videos and people should be there watching and listening and enjoying. But instead, hey, it's another lockdown video. Fogerty just killed it during the lockdown. He was so impressive. People were sending me messages like, you got to see John Fogerty. I mean, he sounds exactly the way he's always sounded, and he's got so much enthusiasm, and his family is there with him, and they're doing this thing from the hippie bus and everything. They got all the 60s kind of paraphernalia hanging around, and it was just so cool. He's such a legend, and it would be awesome to have them all on stage again. I know some people will argue that Doug and Stu weren't important to CCR. I disagree with that. That's your rhythm section right there. And those guys are a tight, strong rhythm section. And with Fogerty, you can't duplicate. That's lightning in a bottle, hard to duplicate. So let's see it one more time. I think just do it, and who knows? Doesn't look like it'll happen, but Fogerty leaves the door open a little bit. Doug Clifford says, yeah, it would have been good 20 years ago. I disagree. I'm thinking it's still good. Still good with the music scene the way it is. going away quickly. It would be nice to see CCR one more time. All right, that's my opinion. You can disagree with it. It's okay. Don't forget to check out Patreon, folks. I'm still in need of patrons over there. I'd like to be a totally independent channel, which means that regardless of what YouTube is doing with their algorithm, which has not been kind to me this year up until the Eric Clapton video, I'd like to just be able to make videos and not worry, and maybe do videos on other platforms exclusively. I don't know. I know people are technologically challenged and they're used to YouTube, and I would like to just stay here and keep making videos. So either way, that's why Patreon is a great way to support the channel. $1 a month, $2 a month. Also, don't forget about YouTube memberships. That's easy to sign up for. Just hit the join button. It's not that difficult. Hit the join button and they'll walk you through the rest of the process. All right, folks, thanks again. Don't forget about Modern Retro Radio, modernretrofm.com. If Fogerty has new music or any vintage artists comes forth with a new song, they will be playing it. So that's why you should check out modernretrofm.com. All right, see you soon.